Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here. And before we jump in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you're the first to know of all new content as it's posted. We have a return to something that's been going on for quite a few years. We have an atheist suing the federal government to force them to be atheist. In a wonderful example of irony, in order to not violate the First Amendment, you must violate the First Amendment by restricting the free exercise thereof. Looking at this story, the Supreme Court declined on Monday to take up a legal dispute targeting the inscription of "In God We Trust" on coins and currency from the Department of Treasury. Michael Newdow, an activist who filed the case on behalf of a group of atheists, argued Congress' mandate to inscribe the nation's motto on U.S. money was a violation of the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, which prohibits Congress from establishing a national religion. I'm not going to read the rest, but this is the man who tried to bring a case to remove "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance in 2004. He tried to block Chief Justice John Roberts from using "So Help Me God" in 2009, 13, and 17 for presidential inaugurations, and so on and so forth. But when you look at the numbers, approximately 70% of Americans identify as Christian, with less than 4% identifying as atheist. That puts you at something about 14 to 1 when you look at Christians versus atheists. I've studied the Constitution. I've studied the history of this country from before the Revolutionary War to the present day. It's what my degree is history. And this is as foolish a case as there ever has been on this topic. You see, first we must ask, which God? And typically there's three types of people three types of responses people give to that question. We're going to say 49.75% mock me. 49.75% don't answer. Maybe 0.5% actually try to have a conversation. But looking at it, when you have, and this is not something I say as a Christian, this is something I say as someone who has studied and someone who has learned how to compose papers and theses and so on. When you have the word God with a lowercase g, that simply mandates or refers to a supreme being. You have the gods of Olympus: Zeus, Hera, Hades, Ares, Aphrodite, so on. That is where you have a polytheistic religion, you use a lowercase g. When you have the capitalized G in God, it is a monotheistic religion. There is only one God. But there are three monotheistic religions, at least the three largest, are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. When you look at those, you must ask, which God? Are you referring to Jehovah, God of the Jews? Are you referring to God, the God of Christians, who is both Jehovah and all of the other names, simply aspects of his personality? Or are you referring to Allah? And no one really ever wants to even entertain that question. But looking further into this, the First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, putting aside the fact that I don't know many people at all who carry cash these days, one would ask, where is it on your debit card or your Apple Pay? And of course, they're going to say, well, it's on the currency that it represents. Well, you're not carrying it. You're not exchanging it. You don't ever have to see it. I personally, in the last 6 months, can remember 3 days where I used cash. You see, for my birthday, Memorial Day weekend, I received some cash, some money from my family. And I went, put most of it into my bank, and then put gas in my car. I was out of cash by the end of the day. Then, the very next weekend, I took my nephew to a gun show. I knew that a lot of the vendors there don't want to take credit cards because of the horrible reception in that building, or they charge fees, so I went to the ATM and got a good amount of cash out. What I didn't use went back into my bank. So let's say there were 4 days in the last 6 months that I've carried cash. It's very simple. 4 words on currency does not a mandate of religion make. Congress has not said that Islam, Judaism, atheism, Hinduism, Sikhism, they've not said those are illegal. They've not said you may not practice them. They've simply not taken this off of the money. In fact, it is more of a historical thing. It was in 1864, right before the end of the Civil War, that the words first appeared on American currency. It wasn't until 1955 that Congress decided that they were going to enshrine this in rules and regulations. And that's all it ever is. But this is another case of the differences between conservative and liberal philosophy. If a conservative does not like something, they simply don't take part. I don't agree with a lot of things, and I simply avoid them. Okay? It's that simple. If any of them happen to be illegal, then I would advise my friends not to do them because it is illegal, not because I feel it's morally wrong. I don't want them going to jail. But that's it. If a liberal does not like something, no one is allowed to take part in it. In this case, because a liberal is an atheist, no one is allowed to publicly display their faith. But liberals support abortion, so in their mind, well, if you don't like it, just don't do it. And that is a horrible philosophy. No one is forcing you to carry cash. No one is forcing you to state the words, so help me God, or under God. I would personally think right now, if a Jewish president, or an atheist president, or a Buddhist president, or anyone who is not a Christian was elected president, they would be able to tell the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I will affirm, and I am not Christian, so I will not say, so help me God. And they may have to do some working and some talking, but I don't think it would be a problem. The problem I have is that 3% of the population regularly sue to force the vast majority of the population, 70+%, to hide their faith. They see a cross memorializing someone's death on the highway, and they sue the city to tell them, get out there and take that down. You're forcing religion on me. No, they're not. There are some cities that fight back, and they win. Unfortunately, there are some cities who bow and cave. That's the vast majority, because they don't even want to spend the money to argue the case when it is a loser from the beginning for the people who filed it. My being a Christian does not in any way, shape, form, or fashion force you to become one. My walking around with my Bible in my hand and a cross pendant around my neck does not in any way, shape, form, or fashion force you to do anything. I served as a county sheriff's deputy, as well as a volunteer firefighter, both government physicians, although the volunteer firefighter was very loosely city government. In both of those cases, I refused to hide my faith. Are you going to start telling police officers, EMTs, firefighters, soldiers, that they must actively hide their faith? In some cases, that is exactly what people are doing. There are, or there have been, failed attempts to force the military to remove the chaplaincy corps as a whole. So in that case, at least, they were not targeting one religion, and the military rightly refused and won the case. But this is just the latest in another assault on faith, on religion. You have an extremely small minority of people who have decided that as I am not religious, no one else may be religious publicly. And that is not what this country was founded on. You see, the Constitution was written very, very carefully. And The Supreme Court has done a very good job, with a very, very few exceptions, in ensuring that U.S. law is in line with the Constitution. And in this case, they have hit it dead center. 4 words on U.S. currency does not form a national religion. It never has, and it never will. But don't expect Mr. Newdow, to give up. Expect him to continue suing and continue losing, and expect the major media organizations to continue commiserating with him on the, I don't know what they'll call it, but they will commiserate with him. And unfortunately, ultimately, they will win. And that will signal the beginning of the end of this country if that doesn't happen before they win. It's just very sad. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think. Remember, though, stay civil. We don't want an argument. We don't learn from those. We learn from a good debate. As always, please remember to like and share the video, as well as, again, to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.